Hello everyone. I'm Professor Guan-Hua from the Michigan State University. So today's topic is powering the infrastructure for the critical services, ensuring the secure, reliable emergency communication over the cellular networks. So our world has been mobilized. Okay, we can see the mobile coverage everywhere. They provide us with ubiquitous coverage, ultra-fast speed, and extremely low latency. And they can be the indispensable infrastructure to our daily life, including the everyday voice text services, emergency services, IoT, autonomous driving, robotics, and human-centered computing. Among all the services, the emergency service can be the most important one. The reason is that emergency communications as a critical service help the people in emergency situations. The global deployed cellular networks with ubiquitous coverage has been the most accessible channel to the emergency services. Basically, you can use the landline phone or wireless to dial emergency call, but the cellular emergency service was the most accessible channel. And according to the standard to maximize the emergency service availability, in the United States, the Federal Communications Commission stipulated cellular carriers they need to transmit all the wireless 911 calls to PSAP, Public Safety Action Point, without respect to their call validation. It means that no matter you have the SIM card or not, even you don't have the SIM card, when you dial 911, all the operators, they need to transfer your emergency call to the 911 call center without any validation, as defined by law. And the GSMA stands for the GSM Association. They require emergency services must be supported by all the mobile phones, even without SIM card, and they must be free of charge. Means you don't need to pay. You can dial emergency call, but you don't need to pay. And the next will be the 3GPP. 3GPP is an international telecommunications standard organization. They require the emergency services must be provided with higher priority, higher than the other type of services, including the voice, data. And they allow the user to access all available radio access technology, generations of the cellular networks, and all the operators. It means that users are supposed to access emergency services anytime, anywhere, as long as the wireless coverage is available. But in practice, it's difficult. The reason is that an operational cellular infrastructure comprises multiple generations of the cellular networks. And the 3GPP allowed emergency users to search across all the generations of the cellular networks. But the problem is that they are not equally secure and reliable. And the emergency service also allowed some insecure operations. First, anonymous access, which means that even you are anonymous users, you don't have a SIM card, you don't have a roaming agreements with the current visitor network, you're still allowed to access emergency services. They allow the no security protection, and you don't need to pay. And they create a potential attack service for adversaries. And even more threatening, emergency services share the same infrastructure as non-emergency services. It means that any design defects in the emergency services can threaten entire mobile ecosystem. So our goal is, okay, we try to identify all the design defects in the emergency services so we can better protect our world. But the problem is that basically it's impossible for us to identify all the design problems through the manual inspection. So in contrast, formal methods such as model checking offer a more systematic approach to the system examination. So yeah, here I briefly introduce what are the formal methods, what the formal methods are. Okay, so the model checking technique has been proven effective in identifying the design defects within the cellular protocols and the services. So it comes with the several steps. First steps, we need to define the desired properties. For example, okay, no emergency code can be rejected, and all emergency code must be protected with confidentiality and integrity protection. As for first step, we define the desired properties first. Then we go to model the cellular networks. We model the cellular network using the formal modeling language that's Permana. Okay. The reason why we model the system using the modeling language is because in the cellular networks, most protocols can be modeled as a finite state machines. So that's the best way we can use the model checking to check all the problems, all the design problems systematically. Next step is that we can apply the model checking. For example, we can use a model checker such as speed to verify if a model system can satisfy all the desirable properties under all the scenarios. If any properties cannot be satisfied, which means it's violated, and the model checker will generate a counterexample. Counterexample basically will provide all the state transitions and all the traces and tell us how this property is violated. By analyzing the counterexamples, we can know the potential design defects. So by using this approach, we developed a 9-1 verifier. So 9-1 verifier is a cellular-specific model checking tool. They allow us to comprehensively and systematically examine the emergency service designs. Okay. So I will skip the details here. I will present the interesting findings we have now. So by using this tool, we identified the 31 design defects threatening the security and the reliability of the cellular emergency services. So then I will mainly introduce 4 of them. Okay. So our result shows, okay, the emergency services are far from the satisfactory. The emergency in the United States are not only deniable, but also abusable. Okay, means that you are able to deny 80 other people emergency service code, and then you can abuse them to get the free data, voice, or text services. The next thing is, okay, we find that they are not reliable as expected, even with a sufficient wireless coverage. Means that you have a sufficient wireless signal coverage, the user still experience longer emergency call setup time, and they will experience call initiation failures. They will also experience unnecessary call drops. Yeah, I will introduce our findings later. Okay. More threatening, our findings are not limited to the United States, but also discovered in other areas. So we validate our discovered design defects using the 3 top US carriers, including AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and the 2 major Taiwanese carriers, China Telecom and the Far EasTone. We demonstrate the global impact of our findings. So before I introduce our findings, I will briefly go through the cellular emergency services architecture. Okay. So in the 4G, 5G networks, they use the VoIP-based services to provide the user with emergency services. The protocol they use is a SIP, initial protocol. And it's mandatory by the IMS domain. IMS is an IP multimedia subsystem. You can consider IMS is more like a system with a lot of VoIP servers. Okay. Then the IMS server is responsible for the emergency service signaling and the data traffic. The user traffic will be traversed from the radio access network and the core network IMS and the PSAP. PSAP is a 911 call center. Okay. So this is for architecture part, and the next I will introduce the emergency service flow. How we dial the emergency service from our phone. It comes with 3 steps. The first step, when you dial emergency, you dial 911 and press button, dial button. Your phone will do the following 3 things. First, he will try to establish an emergency IP cancellation. IP cancellation you can consider is more like we try to obtain IP connectivity. By establishing IP cancellation, you can receive the IP connectivity with the highest priority in the cellular networks. With this IP connectivity, you can communicate with IMS server. Then you can perform the IMS IMS emergency registration. So in this procedure, we will establish a secure channel between the phone and IMS server through the IPsec. Then we perform the registration. And the next step is that your phone will initiate IMS emergency session establishment. Basically, we will dial emergency call. So we will send a SIP invite to the IMS server. Then IMS server will forward our SIP invite to the 911 call center. Okay, that's how our phone will do after we press the 911 call, after we press the dial button. Our phone will do these 3 things in sequence. Okay, now let's go to our first finding. Deniable emergency services. So as I mentioned previously, according to the standard, operator need to support a non-service initiated device to access emergency services. You can consider it more like it's anonymous UE. They don't have the SIM card. They don't have the security context with the serving operators. Okay, but FCC stipulate only one emergency IP cancellation can be established for anonymous UE. So, however, due to the lack of the shared security context with the serving operator, the network cannot differentiate whether the second IP cancellation establishment request is sent by benign user or the attacker. When we try to establish an IP cancellation, we need to send a request, right? After we establish that, then what if the infrastructure receives a second IP cancellation request? According to the standard, he say only one IP cancellation can be established for the anonymous UE. So let's take a look at how standard address this problem. So according to the standard, if we receive a duplicate IP cancellation establishment request, they have a different design. In the 4G, they allow operators to reject the duplicate request or accept the duplicate request, but detach the existing IP cancellation. It means that you can reject a second request or you accept it, but you need to terminate its existing IP connectivity. In the 5G, it always rejects the second request. Okay. Seemingly, rejecting the second request is correct because second request must be sent by an adversary. An adversary try to send a second request and try to terminate the benign users, the IP cancellation. But actually, the situation is more complicated. The duplicate request, the second request can be sent by the benign users. The reason is that, your phone may experience the unexpected software crash or hardware crash. You need to reboot your phone, and you will dial the emergency call again. But from infrastructure perspective, they have no idea you got a crash, right? You didn't send any notification to the infrastructure. Infrastructure will take you as the send user. Then at that time, you will treat your redialing request as a secondary request. If we follow the 5G standard, we already reject your request, then benign user can never dial the emergency call again. So this is something, we need to deal with. Then we'll provide a solution later. Now, based on the standard designs, we conduct some experiments. We conduct experiment on the 3 US carriers and the 5 Taiwanese carriers. Then we find that there are 3 operators, US1, I think it's probably Verizon, TW1 and TW2. They will accept the second request and terminate the first request, which means if I am an adversary, I can send a second request to the operator. And the operator will terminate the benign user's emergency IP cancellation. Then benign user, they cannot dial any emergency call. If they have established emergency call, will be interrupted. Okay, that's how we are able to launch denial service attack against emergency users. But interesting is for the US 2 and the 3, should be the AT&T and the Verizon. They accept the second request will keep both sessions. It means that they didn't follow the standard, okay? They didn't terminate the first one, but they accept the second one. At that time, the operator can allow the one UE to have the 2 duplicate IP cancelations. That definitely will cause some problems, and we can discuss it later. Okay. So as a result, the adversary can send on the US 1, Taiwan 1, and the Taiwan 2 operators. And the adversary can send a duplicate request to infrastructure and terminate the benign users, okay, emergency services. And the second one is abusable emergency services. So abusable emergency services are without purchasing any SIM cards, without purchasing any mobile plans, we are able to obtain the free data, voice, and text services. Most interesting part is the adversary can obtain the highest priority. We don't need to pay, and we can free to access mobile services and receive the highest priority. That's just something this thing can do. Okay. So how can we make it? Okay, let's go back to the 3 procedures I introduced previously. When we dial the emergency call, we press 911 and dial. Our phone will perform these 3 procedures in sequence without any interruption, right? But ideally, it's the case. But infrastructure, they didn't fulfill any mechanism to guarantee these things. If we don't use the smartphones, we use a software-defined radio, UE, we are able to do one interesting thing. We obtain the IP, we establish emergency IP cancellation only, but we don't try to perform the registration. We don't try to send any civil invite. What thing will happen? If we can make it, then an adversary can obtain a higher priority emergency IP cancellation, but without initiating any emergency service, result in the resource abuse. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned previously, standard didn't stipulate any mechanism for fulfill this property. These 3 procedures, we can interrupt them. So we conduct experiments, Basically, we observe the same result from all operators. We can obtain IP connectivity. We can obtain IP address. Then we don't perform any emergency registration. We don't send any civil invite. The only thing we need to do is we just periodically send a packet out. Then we can keep an RRC connection, radio connection with the base station. We can keep an IP address for a long time without dialing any emergency calls. If you don't dial emergency call, 911 call center will not be aware of your emergency calls. Then you will not get into any trouble. An adversary will not get into any trouble. They will not be traced back by the federal agencies. But if we can only keep the emergency IP connectivity, it's useless. So we find actually we can do more. We find that the asset control of the emergency IP cancellation is problematic. It means that ideally the access of the emergency IPCAN session should be restricted to IMS server. It means that if you establish IPCAN session, you get IP address for emergency service. You can only send a packet to IMS server. You cannot send a packet to other people, other devices. You should not allow them to do that. This is for the asset control. But we find it's not the case. Yeah, we are able to communicate with non-IMS server using the emergency IPCAN session. Okay, why we can make it? Okay, let me introduce the reason. Okay, in the 4G and the 5G networks, there is a component named the policy control function. The policy control function will tell the gateway, which is like a P gateway or a UPF in the 5G or P gateway in the 4G. They will tell the P gateway how to perform the asset control for the particular user. Okay, they will specify, okay, you can send a packet to the particular server or not. They can specify this asset control. They will be mandated by the PCF. But the problem here is that we find that PCF may not be able to deploy the asset control policies during the emergency IPCAN session establishment procedure. Why? The reason is that, okay, emergency IMS server discovery can be done by UE using the DNS query after the UE obtain IP address. Means we provide the UE with IP address first, then UE will go to discover the IMS server by using the DNS query. Then once the IMS server receives the UE registration request, he will tell the UPF, hey, I am the IMS server selected by the UE. You need to configure the asset control for this user. Restrict this user traffic to me only. You should not allow this guy to transmit the packet to other people. Okay, that's how the standard designed. But the problem is, what if the UE didn't perform the IMS registration? They didn't perform IMS emergency registration, okay, towards the assigned IMS server. If IMS server didn't receive a registration request from UE, the IMS server will not notify the PCF. The PCF will not deploy the asset control policies. Without asset control policies, you can transmit the packet to anywhere you want. So here is our result. Okay, we find that all the operators, no one can set up the asset control policy without errors. Okay, we consider several types of communication. For example, like from a mobile device to the internet, or from mobile device to mobile devices. Okay, all the operators, even they do not allow the mobile to internet communication, but they allow the mobile device to mobile device communication. On our smartphone, basically we have the three interfaces. You can consider we have the three IP addresses. One is for emergency service. The other is for IMS signaling message. The third is for the normal data service. And we find all the operators allow the emergency IP to emergency IP communications. And the US3 allowed the emergency IP to the IMS IP address communication. Yeah, basically, by leveraging the mobile-to-mobile communication, then we can obtain the free data, voice, and the text services. You may wonder how we make it. For all the emergency services, you just need to know we don't need to pay, right? So we are free to transmit the data over emergency IP connectivity. Okay. Yeah, here just some result to show you how we can transmit the data to other devices using the emergency to emergency communication. I'd like to show you the attacks, how we make it. Okay. So we can deploy the attack. Here is our attack test bed. Okay. So yeah, right here. So we developed the mobile to internet gateway. So idea is, okay, we can develop a software-defined radio UE. This UE will perform an emergency IP CAN session establishment procedure. He can obtain an emergency IP address. Then he connect with a Wi-Fi router, so he can send a packet to internet. So by using this approach, we are able to develop a mobile to internet gateway. Okay. Then we have another UE. We have another mobile device. We use this mobile device to obtain emergency IP address. So then we can send the data from this phone to this base station, this software-defined radio UE, using operators' radio frequency band without paying for that. So we can transmit data from one device to another device, and finally we can reach the internet. We don't need to pay for that. So we test several, the services, including the Google Voice, Google Text, and internet services. We didn't see we didn't see the clear differences between the free services and the normal services, including their call accept time, including their text delivery time. Okay, so that's how we're able to achieve a free data service by using the emergency services. Okay, the first two findings are related to the security. Then the next two findings are related to our life. Okay, our finding shows, even with the sufficient wireless coverage, you cannot dial emergency call. But if you don't dial emergency call, and your call will get established within a few seconds. Okay, let me introduce our finding first. By design, when a UE has a poor connectivity to his home 3GPP radio access network, it doesn't mean your emergency call accept time will be prolonged. Why? The reason is that even my home radio access network signal is really bad, but I can use other people's network. I can use the non-home carrier's network. I can use the Wi-Fi. The reason is that 3GPP allowed the emergency users to use all available radio access technology, all available generation for mobile networks, and all the operators. So here's an example. I'm the user of I'm a operator 1 user. Operator 1 user signal is really bad here. It doesn't mean, my emergency call accept time will be longer. It's because I can use other people's radio access network. I can use operator 2's network. I can use the Wi-Fi to dial emergency call. By the design, 3GPP allow me to do that. Because I have a good signal. But the problem is, it's not the case. We find if we conduct experiment at these locations, the 90% emergency call cannot be set up within 2 minutes. But for non-emergency call can be made within the 5 seconds. We also conduct experiment at the Jiao Tong University. We conduct experiment at the MSU and the Jiao Tong University. We find the same result. This location not really observed. Basically, you can observe this location everywhere in the indoor environment. The reason is that, the 3GPP forbid the user from making emergency call through non-3GPP radio access network when any 3GPP radio access network is available, no matter how weak their signals are. It means that if you can receive any cellular signal, no matter how weak it is, you are not allowed to make an emergency call using Wi-Fi. No matter how the cellular signal weak is, you cannot make it. Now you may wonder why the 3GPP makes such priority list. The reason is, the 3GPP believe, the 3GPP radio access technology can provide user with guaranteed bit rate with a better resource support, but Wi-Fi can't. So if the user can use a 3GPP radio access network, we should allow the emerging user to use a 3GPP RAN first to provide them with the best service quality. But it's not always true in the practice, at least in the indoor environment. Even Wi-Fi signal is pretty good. You are not allowed to use that. You need to, because you can receive the cellular signal, no matter how weak it is. And the next interesting finding is that we find the subscriber user, means a paid user, usually experience a longer call setup time than anonymous user. Anonymous user, you can consider they are the free rider. They didn't pay for operator. They just free rider. They don't pay anything. But for those anonymous users, their call setup time will be much shorter than the paid user. We also conduct experiments in many places. For the subscriber user, their call setup time, their median is around 40 seconds. But for anonymous user, their call setup time shorter than 5 seconds. I pay for operators, but the quality I receive is much worse. Why? It doesn't make any sense. The reason is 3GPP say for the subscriber user, you need to try your home network first. If your home network doesn't work, then you can try other people's. But for anonymous user, they don't have such a limitation. If you are an anonymous user, you are free to try everything you have. So I think this is something people didn't know, but it indeed defined in the 3GPP standard. We report our finding to the Federal Communication in the United States. They are pretty surprised with these findings. They call for the meeting with us, and the Homeland Security also have a meeting with us. They try to ask all operators solve this problem. Because actually we reported our finding to operator first, but operator didn't care. There is something they don't care because their revenue they will not affect the revenue, and then so that's why we decide to tell their boss. We report our finding to FCC. FCC was pretty surprised with our finding and called for a meeting immediately. Sometimes you need to report your finding to right people. Operator, they don't care all the problems if their revenue will not be affected. Another thing about the fourth finding is unnecessary call drop. When you make emergency call, you may not stay at the same location. You may move around, right? And we find the established call may drop during the mobility, no matter how sufficient the cellular coverage are. Here is the example. So we show the I think upper layer. I cannot see very clearly. I think the upper layer is for the what? Anyway, let me check it. The example is When we dial emergency call, we can move around. In some location, the 3G signal is weak, but the 4G signal is strong. We will expect a 3G to 4G handover will occur because you will be moved to the technology with the better signal. It's something people will expect. But this handover will never happen. So that result in a call drop. It means that, if I already established an emergency call, and I go to the press, I make this emergency call in the 3G, but the 3G signal is bad. 4G signal is good. I'm supposed to be moved to the 4G, right? But this handover will never happen, so I got a call dropped. But I indeed have a 4G signal there. Why? The reason is not all types of handovers are permitted during emergency call. For example, like a 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, such type handovers are not permitted. But from the 4G to 3G or from the 5G to 4G are permitted. You may wonder why they define this thing is so weird. Yes, I also believe that. Okay, I think probably they will think, okay, the older technology they may have a better coverage. For example, okay, we have the 4G and the 5G at the same time, right? In the most cases, the 4G coverage will be much better than the 5G because usually we only deploy a few 5G base stations at the very beginning. But they will not be the truth. At least in Taiwan, it's not the case. So I think the 3GPP they need to revise their design, such unjustified prioritized list doesn't make any sense. Okay. So yeah, let me briefly introduce our solutions. Okay. So we try to make our emergency services more secure and more reliable. So first of all, for the first attack, okay, our emergency call can be denied or terminated by the second IP cancellation request. Our solution is okay. The proposed solution is we think operators should accept both. The operator should accept the second request. However, they should limit their maximum bandwidth to 31 kbps. Why is the 31 kbps? Because it's a minimum requirement for basic voice services. So by using this approach, we can mitigate the attack incentive for adversary to abuse IP cancellation. But we will not reject benign user requests because the second request can be sent by the benign users. And for the second approach is that we say if the emergency user, they didn't perform registration to an IMS server, then IMS server cannot notify the PCF, so the PCF cannot configure proper asset control policy. How we address this problem? So we propose delay authorization of emergency IP cancellation. What does it mean? It means that user, you can obtain IP cancellation, but IP cancellation will only be valid for 3 seconds. If you perform the registration within the 3 seconds, the IMS server will notify the PCF, right? Then PCF will upgrade your session to the longer IP cancellation rather than the short-term one. But if you don't perform any IMS registration, then your IP cancellation will be tailed down within the 3 seconds. So that's why we're able to prevent the possible abuse by using this approach. The next, we'd like to introduce how we prevent unnecessary long call set time. We developed a tool, and it's called emergency call dial. Okay, we are able to reduce the call set time by 90%. So idea is that if we find if we can convert the user phone from a subscriber UE to anonymous UE, then user can dial emergency quickly. Then we will do that. So by using the approach, we can reduce the call set time. If we find that there is the cellular signals are pretty bad, but Wi-Fi signals are good, then we'll allow the user to dial emergency call by using the Wi-Fi. How can we make it? So actually, when you dial emergency call, when you dial 911, your phone didn't send a 911 at all. Your phone will convert a 911 into the local emergency call phone number, which means, for example, if you are dial emergency call in the East Atlantic, the local emergency call number will start with 517. So we are able to convert 911 into the local emergency call phone number. If you do that, your phone will allow you to dial this number by using the Wi-Fi. So by using this approach, we can significantly reduce the call set time by 90%. And this is a solution we already proposed to the FCC. Probably, operators will implement that. At least they can help the people to dial emergency call quickly. So, yeah, So we receive a lot of research award and recognitions from both academia and the industry, including the Mobicon Best Paper Award runner-up, okay, and the Get Mobile Research Highlight, and the SIG Mobile Research Highlight, and we also receive an NS grants, okay. Yeah, anyway, I just skip those details here. Just I think it's interesting, okay, to do to improve reliability and the security for emergency services, because we can make a real impact to our work and make it better. Okay. So here I just like to thank my collaborators and my students. Yeah. So it will be all today. So any questions?
Thanks, Professor Du. It's a great talk. So any questions from the audience? Or any question from the audience online?
Yes.
Yes.
So when you launch the free access, so I see that the throughput is only like 2 or 3 megabits per second. So but actually, the 5G or 4G throughput would be much more higher. So can we make it higher?
Yeah, you can make it high, but basically you mean the solution part, right?
In the
you mean the attack?
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason is that we use a very cheap SDR, so basically just $1,000. Okay, if it doesn't support a MIMO, it only support a single antenna. I think it can be improved. Yeah. Yeah. Just, but we are not bad guy. We just want to prove some concept.
This means the bottleneck is at the SDR, not about the network.
The operator didn't say the limitation there. If we can upgrade the hardware, they should be fine. Yeah, we can improve but I don't intentionally improve the transmission rate because I'm not a taker. I'm a researcher. Yeah.
Because I thought this is from the operator, but it is from our side, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I have actually some questions
Yes.
about how you do this kind of research. I'm very curious. Okay, the first thing is about when we are doing this kind of research, actually, do you need the consensus or the agreement from the carrier, or you just do and then tell them, okay, your network has some issues. How do you actually do this? Especially, I saw that you have some experiment on the US and also in Taiwan.
Yes.
Is there any difference when you are doing research in these two areas?
You mean about operators?
Yes, operators. Yeah.
If you tell operator you want to do something like that, they will always say no. So they don't want the people to disclose any of our vulnerabilities in their networks. They always say no, they don't want you publish anything like that. But sometimes they indeed did something wrong. We need to tell their boss so they can make our work better and more secure. So we choose to do that. But actually, we don't launch attack against any people. We didn't send any 911 call to their 911 call center. Many contact experience on our device. Mm-hmm. We develop application. They can help us to intercept all the 911 call signaling messages. Then we can prevent them being sent to the 911 call center. Okay. So basically, we will not affect the normal emergency services. Yeah. But we still can find some engineering problems there.
Okay, another issue, another question is that, okay, it seems that some of the hole or maybe some problem is caused by the 3GPP standard.
Yes.
It's something that already said by the standard that you should do this. But then we found that it's not a reasonable protocol. Yes. Then how can we do? Like, what do you do? You say maybe you import to FCC. Yes. What happened next? Did they tell 3GPP to change it? I think it's a little challenging to do the action.
Basically, FCC, United States, they will manage everything. They don't care what the 3GPP define. Their requirement will be much higher than the 3GPP. If they ask operator, you have to solve this problem. I don't care what the 3GPP define. You change their power. You have to remove this prioritized list. Operator have to do that. Otherwise, operator will lose their franchise. They cannot make money in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why the FCC is interested in our findings. Yeah. They also try to introduce us to Homeland Security because they think Anyway,
Okay,
if
since that, okay, yeah, much higher priority than.
because it's an emergency service, it will affect
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the people in the United States. Yeah.
Does this also happen in Taiwan or it's just happening?
Yes, because I collaborate with the Professor Qi Li, so
Yes.
we validated the problem in Taiwan. In Taiwan, they also, you can try to dial emergency call here. Probably you can. Yeah, if you can receive a very weak cellular signal and you cannot make any emergency call.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but if you make non-emergency call, the call can be get established quickly.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So this is something we want to deal with. So let's we develop a tool, application that we can download from the internet. Yeah, it's open source.
Yeah, I think that's a very clever solution, I think.
Yeah, we try to promote our solution to the operators in the United States.
Okay.
How about in Taiwan?
Yeah, how about?
It will be handled by Professor Lee.
Okay, now you're in charge, okay. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, thank you.
No? If not, then thanks Professor Cruz for a great talk.
Yeah, thank you.